When we talk about ground-mounted PV arrays, we mean arrays that are mounted close to soil or sand, or on a fairly simple scaffolding over soil or sand. Pole-mounted arrays are generally considered a separate category, and we'll talk about arrays over parking lots later. Ground-mounted PV arrays may be part of off-grid systems or grid-connected systems. Off-grid ground-mounted PV arrays may be of any size, from a single PV module to many kilowatts. The system shown here at a research center in a jungle has only 4 modules. Ground-mounted grid-connected PV arrays may also be of any size. The biggest grid-connected systems, utility-scale PV systems, always have ground-mounted arrays. These systems are greater than a megawatt and require large plots of land. Commercial-scale systems, which range from about 8 kilowatts to 2 megawatts, are commonly on roofs or parking lots, and rarely are on previously open ground. Ground mounting is also rare for residential-scale grid-connected systems. Land use issues have come up in trying to locate PV arrays on large plots of land. Environmental issues come up in developing untouched natural areas for electricity generation, and in the effects of PV arrays on animal habitats. In the western United States, many of the sunny open areas are in deserts, but they may still be delicate ecosystems with rare, threatened, or endangered species, such as the desert tortoise. Water for use during construction or for cleaning modules may be scarce. There have been large controversies in California over some proposed large utility-scale PV systems in desert areas. Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger famously commented, quote, "If we cannot put solar power plants in the Mojave Desert, I don't know where the hell we can put it," end quote. But it is also true that solar energy has benefited greatly from concern for the environment, and this support continues to be important. The solar industry cannot afford to develop a reputation for environmental destruction, even now that power plant-sized PV systems are being built. Several large PV systems have recently been built or are under construction in desert areas of California and elsewhere. In some cases, there have been substantial delays for permits, and steps have been taken for wildlife and other environmental protection. The building of large PV systems in agricultural areas has also been controversial. There has been opposition to the conversion of agricultural land to use for solar electricity generation in California and New Jersey. In New Jersey, the building of PV arrays on farmland may be prohibited in the future. After all, people need food as well as electricity. When agricultural land is sought for PV arrays, one should look for land used for lower value crops. It is much easier to arrange to build a PV system on land previously used for grassland than on land used for a vineyard. This PV system, the largest in Pennsylvania, was built on a farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. To get permission to build the system, the developers had to agree that the land could be converted back to farmland after the expected 20-year life of the system. Among other requirements, the module racks were all built without the use of concrete footing. The supports had to be driven deeper to be secure without concrete. In some places, previously abandoned agricultural land has been used for large PV systems. This land is already in an unnatural condition, but for one reason or another is no longer being farmed. The ability to convert land that was previously used for agriculture to solar energy use depends on state and local laws. This may be much easier in states other than California and New Jersey, where pressure for farmland preservation is strong. The federal government has designated solar energy zones on federal-owned land in 6 southwestern states for the development of large-scale solar energy projects. This map from July 2012 shows the location of 17 zones, and an additional solar energy zone was added in Arizona in January of 2013. The zones were chosen for good sunlight and easy access to existing or planned electrical transmission lines. Some areas are former mines or other areas with reduced concern for damage to environmental, historic, or cultural resources. As the map shows, areas outside the solar zones may also be made available. There has been much interest in locating PV systems on abandoned industrial land and closed landfills. These lands are damaged and in need of remediation, and some are Superfund sites. Often they are sites that cannot be used for much. Many of them are near roads and power lines from their former use. However, Such sites may be difficult to work on. There may be unknown toxic materials and the land may be unstable. Overcapped landfills. Mounting structures cannot risk harming the membrane cap, and settling occurs at newer sites. Strategies for mounting PV arrays on the ground are quite varied. Standardized racks are made by several companies, and some arrays use unique racking systems that were designed specifically for that array. Either way, the racking for a large PV array requires a lot of hardware. This picture shows some of the mounting hardware for a 3 megawatt PV system in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Let's look at some racking systems for ground-mounted arrays. Here are some views of the array on the farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Most racking systems for ground-mounted systems use metal racking parts, as we see here. This system did not use concrete to secure the footings of the mounting system. This picture shows a small array for which the posts are secured to poured concrete footings. Mounting may also be secured by bolting to ballast weight, as seen in this racking system before the modules were attached. In this system, the ballast simply sits on trays to which the racking is attached. This steel mounting structure is described as self-ballasting. It is sold in pre-built units with 12 modules already attached. Each 12 module unit weighs 1,841 pounds. It has the advantage of no on-site assembly. It is simply delivered, set in place, and wired in. Wood structures have also been used for ground mounting, as seen in these pictures. In the lower picture, the wood elements sit on concrete blocks. These pictures show a PV array mounted on the south slope of a hillside. In this case, the hill is a landfill. Mounting a PV array on a hillside takes advantage of the slope to avoid inner row shading. Water runoff can be a major problem for large PV arrays in some areas. One solution is sloped ground, so that the water runs to the periphery of the array where it can be collected. Another solution is vegetation, such as the grass shown here. However, grass needs to be trimmed so that it does not begin to shade the PV modules. In this picture, sheep graze within the solar array and also enjoy the shade under the modules. There are reports that goats have scampered up PV modules when grazing in an array, but sheep apparently do not do this. At some locations, it is possible to combine PV and agriculture other than grazing land. Modules can be mounted high off the ground to allow planting underneath them. The higher they are, the more diffuse the shading is. However, there are additional costs with mounting modules high off the ground. Lower mounting is also possible. The yield of the crops is reduced due to the shading from the array. This includes areas under the array which cannot be used for crops, and reduced growth of crops between the rows due to partial shading. Tracking systems are another type of mounting. These systems are almost always located on the ground. They include single-axis and dual-axis trackers. Concentrating systems almost always are on trackers, usually dual-axis trackers. Here's some pictures of ground-mounted tracking systems. The top two pictures show dual-axis trackers, and the bottom two pictures show single-axis trackers. These pictures both show concentrated PV arrays. The array on the left has single-axis trackers, while the one on the right has dual-axis trackers. In summary, we can see that there are numerous approaches to ground-mounted PV arrays. Approaches depend on the type of array, the location, the soil, and whether the ground underneath can have an additional use.